Hey everybody, this week our gospel is full of rich verses from Jesus, both very challenging and then also very comforting. Initially, Jesus says, "Fear no one." That's the first sentence, which is pretty strong. And he's trying to get them to understand of like, don't be fearing people in the world and what they think of you. You need to be concerned about what God thinks, and that is your main focus. Not about pleasing man. You need to be worried about pleasing God and what God sees before anything else. And then the last part of it, the very last part of this gospel is, whoever acknowledges me before others, I will acknowledge before my heavenly Father. But if you deny me, then I will deny you to my heavenly Father. That is strong. That's something we need to pay attention to. So Jesus is saying, you do not fear man. You shouldn't be speaking according to what other people think. You should be speaking according to what God places on your heart, what it truly is to be one who is a bearer of truth, one who speaks with that fire that you get from the Eucharist. Like St. John Chrysostom said, that we should be like lions breathing fire as we come away from the altar of God, speaking the truth that comes from our faith in love, of course, with understanding and compassion, but to not be afraid to speak the truth. And then we have those comforting words from Jesus that I love, where he says, "Are not two sparrows sold for just a small amount of money? But yet, if one of them falls to the ground, your heavenly Father is aware of it." Think about that for a minute. How many birds are on this planet, let alone sparrows? When one of them falls to the ground, God notices. He's aware of that. And then also that other statement that he even knows how many hairs are on your head, which is pretty powerful when you consider that it's basically saying he has intimate knowledge about you that you don't even have about yourself. There's no possible way that you know how many hairs you have on your head. I know that I have less hair today than I did yesterday, but I don't know how many hairs are there. God knows us, and he knows us well. And he wants us to be people that are truly free, that speak when we need to speak, that we don't worry about what other people think about it, that you have to get out there and you have to speak the truth. You have to speak up for those that are needing us as a voice. Recently, I wasn't even going to bring this up in this video, but I just feel like I'm going to. The issue of racism, right, and the things that have happened, and it's a minefield to get through, of knowing what to say and trying to say it well and wondering what people think. I can identify with that as a priest and as someone who's very passionate about the issue. And I would just say to you that I really think this gospel is necessary for me as well as for you, and the encouragement that I need. It's like, I know what I need to say, and I don't need to be afraid to say it because of what other people are going to think about it. The reality is that racism is still an issue in this country. It's been an issue for a long time. And just because laws are established that say, okay, everything's all right now, doesn't mean that everything is all right. You can't have 400 years of oppression and then everything be made right. It just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in history, and it doesn't work that way with human development. Now, as I say that, I know that whenever this video comes out, there's going to be all type of comments underneath. Well, what about this? And what about this issue? And what about all that? And there are many issues that we need to pay attention to as Catholics and as we protect life. But we need to pay attention to the crying out of our brothers and sisters. Good, God-fearing, intelligent people are crying out for change, and they're crying out for help, and they're crying for people to understand that there's a real problem that needs to be addressed. Our faith is incarnational. Our God did not stand at the edge of the pit and look down and say, you know what, you need to get out of there. I'm sorry that you're having such a hard time, but you need to get out of that situation. Our God became flesh. Our God became man. And he came down to the very depths of our pit, our suffering. And he sat with us. And he taught us to love. And then he walked out with us. He rose from the dead and he pulled us out of that pit by being with us. When we sing, O come, Emmanuel, God is with us. That's what we mean, that God is in the flesh. We are called not only to be ones who benefit from that God who is always with us, but we are called to be with our brothers and sisters who are suffering. If you feel uncomfortable about the issue of racism, if you don't understand all the angles, if you have doubts and questions, it's okay. But be with, listen, show compassion, err on the side of mercy and understanding. The scriptures tell us to think the best about people, and we should do that with all of our hearts. Be Christ in the midst of what's going on. Our voice is important. Our ability to listen is important. To lead with love and compassion is everything. The gospel tells us that life is incredibly precious. Every life is precious. This world needs radical love in all respects. Let us seek to fill our hearts with the fire of Jesus in the Eucharist, to seek to understand, to listen, and to love with all of our hearts.